We'd lived on Cedar Grove Lane for nearly a decade. Our modest brick home sat at the end of a quiet cul-de-sac, 2 streets away from the community pool, and just a short walk from our elderly neighbor, Mr. Thompson's early morning coffee group. My dad, Walter, moved in with us last summer after Mom passed, and despite his failing knees, he still insisted on tending the rose bushes out front. The HOA had always been petty, but harmless. Occasional fines for untended weeds, polite letters about garbage bin placement. Then Denise Whitaker was elected president. She arrived at our front door 3 days before the July heatwave, clipboard in hand. "Your power meter is visible from the sidewalk," she said. "HOA rules require it be screened with approved vegetation or a decorative cover. Be sure to correct that by Friday." I hardly blinked. I draped a trellis of fake ivy over the box. Dad helped me hang it. He complained every time he saw the wilted vines, but smiled when he realized they hid the black metal meter. Then the heat wave hit. Temperatures soared past 105 degrees Fahrenheit by midday, humidity clinging to every surface. Neighbors cranked ACs to maximum. Children's pool parties turned to gasps for shade. And on the second night, as Dad settled into his favorite recliner with a cold towel across his forehead, the power blinked off. I figured it was the city grid struggling under the load. Dad tried to prop open his eyes, but drifted in and out of feverish half-sleep. I texted our friend next door, no answer. I grabbed candles, checked my phone, no outage alerts. In the pitch dark, my apartment's buzzing white noise machine, Dad slept light, went silent. Not a single other house on the block was dark. I called the power company. They'd record no outage on the line. I called Karen next. Her voice was cool, clipped. "I sent a notice," she explained. "Your meter cover violates Section 4.2. Power remains off until you bring it into compliance." My blood ran cold. "You can't shut off my electricity," I hissed. She laughed. "HOA can enforce fines and restrictions. You'll be restored once you fix the violation." By sunrise, Dad was unresponsive. I found him slumped forward, face damp with sweat, breathing shallow. I yelled for an ambulance. It came within 5 minutes, far faster than local standards, but paramedics shook their heads. Heatstroke had already ravaged Dad's system. He died before they could stabilize him. At the funeral, neighbors whispered in corners. Some thought it was an electrical snafu. Others quietly suspected Karen. I felt disbelief morph into rage. How could a decorative trellis cost a man his life? I demanded answers from the HOA board. They sent me the violation letter email, drafted and signed by Karen. They insisted my father's death was a tragic accident, unrelated to the power cut. A few board members admitted discomfort with Karen's decision, but none would override her authority. Grief turned to obsession. I hired an electrician to test the HOA's access panel. We found a hidden relay switch in the landscaping closet, a direct line to our meter, controlled remotely by Karen from the HOA office. She'd flipped it off in the height of the heat wave, knowing I'd be forced to comply or suffer the consequences. Armed with proof, I alerted the county sheriff's office. They traced the relay controls back to Karen's home computer. When officers executed a search warrant, they found logs showing she'd cut power to 3 other residences that week for minor infractions like missing approved welcome mats or unauthorized patio lights. Karen was arrested for involuntary manslaughter and tampering with public utilities. The HOA board convened an emergency meeting and voted her out, unanimously. But it was too late for Dad. The ice packs, the sun-soaked body in the hospital cooler, the hollow ache in my chest, nothing could bring him back. Now, in the quiet after the storm, I'm left with a hollow house and a shattered sense of safety. Cedar Grove Lane feels tainted, as if the very wires in the walls carry her cruelty. I can't help replaying Dad's final moments in the oppressive dark, the air so thick it felt like soup. My next step is clear: expose every detail of her cruelty and rebuild trust in our community. But right now, all I can do is remember Dad's gentle smile and how he still loved the roses, even when he had to water them by hand in 70-degree weather. He'd always said, "Life's too short not to stop and smell the roses, son." And he was right. Even when the roses wilt, the memory and the warning lives on. The morning after Dad's funeral, I wandered through our dark, silent house. The trellis was gone, but the relay switch remained hidden in the closet. Every corner still haunted me with whispers of that night. I filed for a restraining order and requested a full HOA audit. At the emergency board meeting, residents who once defended Karen looked down at their shoes. The new interim president, Mr. Patel, apologized on behalf of the board and promised transparency. He even invited me to join their newly formed Safety and Compliance Committee, something I never imagined doing. I accepted, though my hands trembled as I signed the papers. I needed to understand exactly how far Karen had abused her power. Over the next week, I reviewed HOA communications and discovered dozens of similar incidents. A young couple stranded without heat during winter, a family locked out of their sprinklers in a drought. Each infraction minuscule, a crooked welcome mat, a misplaced pumpkin, yet each consequence harshly enforced. I interviewed affected neighbors, Mrs. Liu, whose grandson was hospitalized with dehydration after a pool pump shutdown, the Ramirezes, who spent a night in a motel because Karen cut off their electricity over a fallen branch. Their stories mirrored mine, petty violations followed by cruel punishment. Armed with evidence, our committee collaborated with the county prosecutor. They opened an inquiry into involuntary manslaughter and criminal tampering with utilities. Karen's electronic logs showed she'd remotely flipped the switch on Cedar Grove Lane 5 times that summer, each time for personal grievances rather than safety concerns. I sat in the witness chair, clutching my father's favorite handkerchief. I recounted his gentle insistence on watering roses, his harmless laugh at my jokes, and how he trusted our community to protect, not punish. The prosecutor's eyes glistened as he reviewed the relay control records. "This is beyond HOA overreach," he said. "It's deliberate endangerment." Soon after, Karen was indicted on multiple felony counts. The judge set bail at an amount she couldn't possibly afford. She went from driving her SUV through the cul-de-sac to spending nights in a cell too small for her spreadsheet-laden binders. Meanwhile, Cedar Grove Lane began to heal. I organized a neighborhood block party, ice cream trucks, shaded tables, and a tribute to Dad with pots of red roses lining the path. At twilight, we lit candles in his memory, each flame flickering against the warm breeze he'd once felt as he pruned our garden. As I watched neighbors laugh, share stories, I felt a fragile hope. The wires in our walls still carried the promise of comfort, not cruelty. I'd helped turn a tragedy into a lesson. True community respects its most vulnerable members. The week after Karen's indictment, Cedar Grove Lane felt different, less haunted, more hopeful. I dove headfirst into the HOA's Safety and Compliance Committee, determined to ensure no one else would suffer as Dad did. Every morning, I pored over bylaws, legal statutes, and county codes. By day's end, I drafted revisions to forbid any resident or board member from tampering with life safety utilities. Meanwhile, the criminal trial loomed. On the first day, I entered the courtroom clutching Dad's rose-patterned handkerchief. My lawyer body-checked every misdemeanor, every petty fine Karen had issued, and wove them into a pattern of escalating cruelty. This was never about community standards, she told the jury. This was personal retaliation, and it cost a man his life. Survivor testimony began with Mrs. Liu, her voice quivering as she explained her grandson's emergency dehydration hospitalization after Karen shut off their pool pump. The Ramirezes followed, recounting nights spent in motels when bathroom lights went dark. Each story added weight to what I already knew. Karen's authority was a weapon. On the stand, I spoke of that sweltering night in July. I told the jury how Dad's face contorted in heat-stroked confusion, the cold towel that melted into sweat, the futile flick of the hallway switch, the lonely beeping of an unpowered fan. I described the moment I realized the outage was deliberate, the rage-thick knot in my throat as Karen's clipped email hovered on my phone. My voice cracked when I admitted I'd pictured Dad's smile as he pruned roses, every blossom a testament to his stubborn optimism. When the prosecution's final witness, the electrician who discovered the hidden relay switch, described tracing the feedback to Karen's HOA office computer, I felt my heart hammer. The jury watched a looped video, binary code streaming across a computer screen, and the meter box flipping off in real time. No question remained. Then came the verdict: guilty on involuntary manslaughter and 4 counts of tampering with utilities. In that moment, relief washed over me, but it was bittersweet. It couldn't bring Dad back. During sentencing, the judge's voice was stern. "Your abuse of power resulted in a preventable death," he said. "I hereby sentence you to 10 years in state prison." I watched Karen's eyes squeeze shut as deputies clasped her hands behind her back. A collective exhale rippled through the gallery. Outside, neighbors gathered under the oak tree where I'd planted Dad's memorial rose. We held hands in a silent circle. Some wept, others offered gentle pats on my shoulder. I looked up at the blossoms, bright red against the summer sky, and whispered, "We did it, Dad." With Karen removed, the Safety and Compliance Committee oversaw immediate bylaw reforms. We mandated that any power-related equipment remain under municipal authority only. No HOA shall ever again direct electrical service. We also installed emergency access override keys for first responders at every entrance. These changes passed with unanimous approval. In the weeks that followed, I spearheaded the Cedar Grove Elder Council, an ally network connecting seniors with volunteer check-ins during weather extremes. Mrs. Liu and the Ramirezes joined, offering baked goods and lemonade at weekly meetups under Dad's rose arbor. Together, we turned tragedy into community resilience. On the personal front, healing arrived in small moments. A cool breeze through the open windows, the quiet hum of restored electricity, and the scent of fresh-cut grass. I began tending Dad's roses again, gently watering each bloom at dusk. One evening, as the sunset painted the petals gold, I remembered his words. "Son, as long as these roses grow, life goes on." Today, my house stands bright with fans circling overhead, air conditioners humming softly, and solar-powered backup lights glimmering along the walkway. The relay switch is gone, replaced by a stamped county seal over the meter box. I check it every so often, a silent reminder of the line no one in our community must ever cross again. As September arrives, Cedar Grove Lane holds its first annual Rose and Resilience Festival. We'll host flower arranging workshops, heat illness awareness booths, and a ribbon-cutting ceremony by Dad's memorial rosebush. I'll give a short speech, no tears this time, celebrating both life's fragility and our shared strength. And when I finish, I'll look at those red petals and know, though Karen tried to cast darkness over our home, the light of community and justice outshone her cruelty. A year has passed since the jury found Karen Whitaker guilty, and the Safety and Compliance Committee rewrote our bylaws. Cedar Grove Lane has blossomed back into the close-knit community I once knew, albeit one forever marked by loss and hard-won vigilance. The first Rose and Resilience Festival was a triumph. Under Dad's memorial rosebush, neighbors, young and old, browsed informational booths on heatstroke prevention, emergency access protocols, and community safety. Children giggled as they planted tiny rose cuttings in painted pots. Elders shared stories of summers past, their laughter mingling with the hum of restored power and shaded by paper lanterns strung between oak branches. I stood at the podium, heart steady. I spoke of my father's gentle kindness, his stubborn pride in watering those roses with arthritic hands, and how his spirit now lives on in every policy we adopted. I spoke of the relay switch torn from our closet, replaced by a stamped county seal, and how that seal now stands as a barrier against cruelty masquerading as authority. I thanked every neighbor who testified, every volunteer who checks on our seniors, and every council member who recognized that rules without humanity can kill. Later, as the sun dipped low, I walked the streets solo. My home, the place that witnessed my deepest grief, felt peaceful again. The meter box gleamed under a final lantern's glow. I pressed my palm to it, recalling the night's terror and the tenacity it took to restore safety. The county seal was warm from the day's heat, but it radiated promise more than pain. Inside, I passed Dad's old recliner, now draped with a throw embroidered with red roses. The house smelled faintly of lavender and freshly baked bread, that same scent he loved when I first moved him in. I ran my hand along the back of the chair and whispered, "We did it." No echo answered. Only the soft hum of the air conditioner reassured me that power and life flowed unimpeded. That night, I tucked in the Cedar Grove Elder Council's first summer newsletter, reminders about hydration, shade, and emergency contacts, under Dad's rose-patterned handkerchief. Then I stepped outside to close the gate. A cool breeze stirred the trellis above the meter where fresh ivy now climbs. I paused, watching each leaf dance in the moonlight, and felt something I hadn't in a long time: peace. Tomorrow, the HOA board will convene to evaluate feedback from the festival. They'll consider further measures, solar backup units for each house, a volunteer heat team trained in first aid, and a scholarship in Dad's name for students studying public safety. I'll be there, notes in hand, ready to carry forward what began in tragedy. As I turned the gate's latch, I inhaled deeply. Cedar Grove Lane is ours again, a place where rules protect rather than punish, where every life holds value, and where a single relay switch can never sever the bonds of a community determined to keep each other safe. The end.